Hello and welcome to Tricks of the S-Trade channel. Today is the 10th of December 2017, and in today's feature we're gonna put a person that you guys probably have seen, and you probably wouldn't have known or even thought about that he could be transgender in any shape or form. The dude's name, I will call him a dude for now, but by the time we put him to the test, we're gonna find out that he doesn't stand up to that name being a dude. The guy in question's name is Kal Penn. Let me just move you over to a web page of Kal Penn so you can have a good picture of who I'm talking about. So here is Kal Penn. He's an Indian actor, or let's say Indian descent, or the so-called Indians as we call them today, who are not actually the ancient Indians before now. But this is the person in question we're going to put to the test, and to see that if he's actually the gender that he claims today. And besides that, today is also like the program or the show, the video is the myth of whiteness part number 13. Okay, so we've arrived at part number 13 on the myth of whiteness, and today we're going to be talking about specifically something that's called a so-called, brilliant fellows, albinic fellows. Scientists gave it the name steepopedia. We're going to be taking a look at steepopedia, and we're going to be making you understand the reason why, if you've ever watched like movies before, you would see this albinic European women wearing some sort of skirt that is very, very large and very thick behind and looks so cumbersome to be walking about with. We're going to make you understand the reasons why the skirts were made that way, because there's a lot of truth in plain sight that they're not telling you, but we'll make you understand that. And we're going to be featuring a lot of like content today. It contains nudity. So I'm gonna advise anybody who's not friendly with nudity, because we walk around naked. I mean, in our bathrooms, we see ourselves nude all day. But when we see it on an educational channel like this, we start screaming, "Oh, it's Christian! You shouldn't be showing this kind of pictures." So if you have problems with nudity, we would advise at this point in time that you should quit the video. And the warning that I'm gonna put in place on this particular video is that if you're a male and you say any derogatory things towards the pictures that we're going to be showing you, especially because it concerns women, that we are going to block you. There is no comments of objectifying or derogatory statements to women. And secondly, I'd like to apologize for the pictures that I'm going to show, and I just want to make all my female subscribers know that I'm not doing this because because I want to do it. I'm just doing it because it's educational. So I want you guys to bear with me and forgive me for the pictures which I'm going to be showing today. It's going to contain some sort of form of nudity. And like I said before, if you do not like nudity and you do not accept my apology, you can pause the video and quit, because I don't want you leaving comments and making me feel bad. Of course, I'm not going to feel bad of making me think that I did something wrong in the presentation that I'm going to do today. So that's one of the things I would like to put out. Is going to contain some nudity. If you're not okay with it as female, then you can quit and leave. But I don't feel there is any reason why, because we see ourselves nude and you see a lot of people nude every day. So this shouldn't be anything out of the ordinary for anybody. Then also, the next warning I'm going to put in place is that this might be a long video. So if you can't sit through a long video, please do not watch the video. Then the last warning, as usual, is that if you're going to label someone a transgender on this channel, you have to provide links of pictures based on the female skeletal structure, and those pictures have to contain showing that the person has hips below the crotch, a wide pubic arch, a pelvis that's tilted forward, and also what was the last thing I wanted to say, and also an arch in the back. All right, and then if your links of pictures do not come with any of that, and you start out by just saying someone is a transgender on this channel, or someone is a boy, a man, has or done his belts as your facts, and you start saying the person has long, short index fingers, has long arms, long torsos, looks boyish, looks mannish, then your comments are going to be blocked. It is an educational channel. You have to provide pics, show links of pictures based on the facts of the female skeletal structure, which is designed to give birth and which differentiates sexes. Otherwise, you're going to be blocked. And as usual, we are not against transgenders. And secondly, the Vatican hasn't changed. They're the ones responsible for the organized transgendering of people that we're going to find out, like Kal Penn today, and putting them on our TV screens and making us believe that these are actual females. Now, the question about Kal Penn that I want to just throw out there is that over a period of time that I found out that Kal Penn has one of the worst taste in dressing that you could ever find for any man. And he's so covered up and so protected. And I think there is a reason behind it, because Kal Penn is of Indian descent, and I think the Indian nation hasn't come to the terms with the fact of like the Western culture of like homosexuality and transgenderism, besides the fact that they have a lot of like prejudiced people against blacks down there and everything else. But so that's part of the reason I feel that he's so protected, so that the Indian people are not aware of what's going on here, and that's why people can't spot him that quickly. And I also want to thank a subscriber of ours, his name is Jeremy, for bringing this to our attention, because without Jeremy we wouldn't have bothered to take a look at Kal Penn in any shape or form. So I just want to thank Jeremy for that. And I want to tell him that he should, if he's a she, I don't know if he's a he or a she, but whosoever Jeremy is, I want you to keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. Thank you. Okay, so if it's your first time on our channel and you want to continue watching this video from this point in time, I would advise that you pause the video right here and go look for the primer video. Despite the fact that this particular video is also the Myth of Whiteness part number 13, which requires that you would have to watch the whole Myth of Whiteness series from part number 1 down to part number 12 and watch part number 13, because part number 13 that we are on right now is more like a continuation of part number 12. So for you to better understand what we're saying on part number 13, because we're not going to be repeating the same things over and over again, you have to watch that part number 12. But the most important video that you have to watch before you watch any of this is the primer video, and I want to show you how to get to the primer video if you're a new subscriber on this channel. So this is the video, if you're a new subscriber, that you have to watch first. It's called the primer video. All right, it's the most important video that you have to watch on this particular channel. It actually has a playlist for it. Okay, the playlist is called primer as well. So it's going to contain this video and one other video. Now when you pick up a video on this channel, if you're a new subscriber to watch, all right, you should go to the description section of the video. The description section right here, I'm hovering my mouse right over it. There is a link in that description section. After you've watched the primer video, click on this link, all right? And this link is going to lead you to a document. The document is called Male versus Female Visual Differences. We advise that you study this document so you can know how to identify the genders on your own, because a lot of people leave us comments and say, can we look into this and look into this? You are not supposed to be allowing somebody else do something that you can do for yourself, because the reason why we're in this mess in the first place, in which it's become so difficult, I mean, it's something very, very simple, because we are all born of a woman and brought into this world by a woman, that we can identify what a woman looks like. It is crazy that even a woman as herself cannot identify what being a woman is. That's how sad and how bad it has become, because we've spent time allowing other people to identify our reality for us, instead of us asking the questions and answering it for ourselves so that we can know for sure. So we do not like comments of people saying, can you look into this and look into that? You could say it if you're working, all right, but you're confused. You're looking at the pictures, but you can't really see. But just for you leaving a comment and say, can we look into this? We do not appreciate it. We want you to be able to do this on your own, all right, and not ask us questions all the times about the gender. We are all born of a woman. Even females are born of women. The first thing you should know is what a woman looks like. So if you're female and you're even leaving that question, can we look into this? That's a problem. Pick up the document, study how we you watch the videos, you see how we do the transvestigation, that we base it mostly on the pelvis, because it's the pelvis which helps a woman give birth. All right, just like I'm going to show you on this document. So please study the document. It's going to take you 30 minutes or less to go through it. It just has a lot of pictures and it will help you. And then just watch how we do the transvestigation and do it on your own. Answer your own questions. because a lot of us have time to look at TV, watch videos, do some sort of extracurricular activity or social media events or whatever the case might be. You can spend that time into answering your own questions, because a lot of the stuff is a distraction from you, so that you do not go out and investigate, all right, and research your world and know it for what it was and why we're here in this place and in the first place. All right, so let's get into it quickly right here. There is a female to my left. As you can see, there is an arch in the back. The reason why a woman has an arch in the back is because the pelvis of every female is tilted forward. Because of the tilt of the pelvis, there's an arch in the back, so that a woman can carry children, and children can stay inside the pelvic region without falling out. If females had straight pelvises like males, the child would not be able to stay inside the pelvic region for the 9 months that a child stays before coming out of there. So the reason for the pelvic tilt is so that a baby can stay inside. Now, also, a woman's spine is much more flexible than that of a man, because she has to carry the weight of her body weight and the weight of pregnancy as well. So the flexible spine is also the reason why there's an arch in the back, so that she can walk around and not have problems. All right. Then thirdly, the reason for the arch in the back is because it's extra support for the weight of pregnancy and carrying children. Males do not have any arch in their back. One thing I wanted to also forget to say is that the shape of the back of a woman is going to be shaped like an S if you're drawing it up from high up the shoulders, or it's going to be shaped like a C, a deep C arch in the back just before it gets to the pelvic area. All right, so I want you to remember those letters, S and C for females, and the letters for males is D or P or a straight back. Males don't have any arches in their back because the pelvis of a man is straight. He does not need, it's not a requirement. He can't give birth. All right, so that's the reason for a straight pelvis. And secondly, the reason also for a straight pelvis is so that the male genitalia can function optimally outside the body temperature. So it's constructed in such a way that the end of the body is a little bit higher up, all right, than that of a female. Because the end of the body is where your crotch is. So the crotch is constructed in such a way that the hips are up above, just outside of the crotch, so that the genitals can be outside the end of the body and function optimally. So males have a straight back, all right, as you can see right here. The back is going to be straight. If the man's back wants to arch, it's going to arch into the shape of a D or a P. So I want you to remember that males have straight backs, no arches in the back. If a man's back wants to arch, it's going to arch outside into the shape of a D or a P. I'm going to scroll into the document just to show you what a female's back looks like when she's doing things. So here is a female, for example. So if a female kneels down like this, you're going to see this deep C arch in her back because of the pelvic tilt, which is a requirement for all females. Every female has a pelvic tilt, because without the pelvic tilt, you cannot be woman and you cannot give birth. All right, I'm going to scroll forward into the document just to show you that it doesn't matter if the female is big or small, it doesn't matter what color she comes in, or if she's got muscles or whatsoever, there's always going to be an arch in the back of a female. So I scroll forward into the document just to show you that. As you can see right here, there is a big female to my left. As you can see, that pelvis is still tilted forward. All right, and she still has an arch in her back. A small female to my right, and the pelvis is still tilted forward. There is an arch in the back. Okay, so it doesn't matter if the female's got muscles like this, there's still going to be an arch in that female's back because the pelvis is tilted forward. And by now you should know that nothing can change the skeletal structure of any person. It doesn't matter what drugs you take, because you have to remember the way they're able to ascertain the sexes of dead people from bones is from the pelvic region. All right, so if anybody comes up with that nonsense and tells you that when taking drugs it can change the skeletal structure from male to female or from female to male, it's all nonsense. All what the drugs do is change the skin. So for example, if someone is female and trying to transgender to a male, when he takes drugs, the drugs are going to make the skin a lot more tougher than the drugs of male. It's going to cut out the fat that a female usually has, and she's gonna develop muscle, but it can't change the skeletal structure. The hips of a female are always going to be below the crotch. The hips of a male are always going to be above it. So no matter what drugs she takes, that structure is not going to change. Same for males. All right, so that's one thing you have to always understand, and don't let these people play mind games with you. So with that, let's move on. So on the next clip, I'm gonna play a video for you to know the location of where the female hip is at, because this is very, very important. The female hip is always going to be below the crotch, and that's where the Q angle of a female starts. The Q angle of a female starts below the crotch, all right? And the Q angle is the angle between the hip and the knee. For males, it's going to start above the crotch. So the Q angle of a man starts above the crotch, all right? Not below it like a female. So I'm going to play this clip right here so you see how a female is measured into clothes, because it's very, very important for you to know this. Because all around the world, clothes are sewn and shipped to different countries. If there were varying degrees of places for the female hip, the clothes would not fit, because that's one of the most important places that you have to account for when trying to get a woman into clothes. If you can't know the location of the hip, then that's a problem. The woman won't fit. So this is standard anywhere in the world because the hips are below the crotch and is measured that way. So this is what this video is going to show you as I'm going to play it. So I play the video right here, and as you can see, this is a female, and as usual with all females, females always start spreading, getting wider from under their elbows, and the widest point normally, regularly, should be below the crotch. That is going to be the widest point of a female from her waist, which is always going to be above her belly button, from under her elbows down. Now, people should not be mistaken. There is no such thing as hip to shoulder ratio compared to females. Some females can have their shoulders wider than their hips, but that does not change the location of where the hip is at. It's always going to be below the crotch. So when you get on a channel that talks about shoulder to hip ratio and all that nonsense, you should just throw it out, because that's nonsense. A woman's shoulder can be wider than her hips. That's not a problem. The problem is we're talking about where the location is. It's below the crotch, not above it like a man. So with this female right here, you're going to see that the tape goes round. As you can see right there, the measurement of that hip is below the crotch, not above it. Below, that's where a Q angle starts, and the Q angle is the angle between the hip right here and the knee further down, right? And for females, it's always very, very acute. Now, why is the Q angle this acute? Is because the pubic arch, all right, the pubic arch right here is wider for females, so that a baby can come out of that womb without no problems. So a female has a wider pubic arch. That is why a female can spread her legs more, and you can see space in between the thighs when she does so, depending on the fat in her body. All right, so this female is going to turn around so you can see from the back where the hip is at. And she turns around right there. You can see that the location of that hip is slightly above the bum line right here, but below the crotch. And I always advise this: if you have problems with trying to figure out if someone is male or female by looking at the person from the front, you're always going to know if it's male or female when you look at them from the back, because it's going to be so clear at how wide the hips is at and where the Q angle starts for a female from the back. So let's move on and talk about what we're going to talk about today, which concerns a term that the albino scientists always try to make it look like black people have a problem. So black people, yeah, because generally black folk have or black women in general are much more curvier than albinos. When we're talking about albinos, we're talking about anybody with straight hair. That's the definition of being an albino. Sorry to say. If you have straight hair, then you're an albino. It doesn't matter what color of skin you have, or what your facial features look like, or what your body structure. As long as that hair is not woolly, you're an albino. That's just fact, okay? So now the reason why we're talking all about this is because a favorite albino scientists always try to make, because in order to make the myth of whiteness and the myth of white superiority exist, they always have to make you believe that there is something wrong with blacks, but when the science shows that it's not the case. So there's a term they call it for black women having very heavy hips, because women generally, I mean, blacks have the largest hips in the world. There's a picture of a woman which has the widest hips in the world, and she's actually black. And let me point you to that first. So here is a picture of a lady called, her name is Michele Raffanelli, all right? She's considered the woman with the widest hips in the world, all right? I think it's about, they say it's about, let me see what's the actual size here on this particular website. It says it's about, where is it? Michele, mother 4, has a hip measurement of 8 feet in circumference. And as you can see that she's black. But the term that we're trying to talk about today as the medical condition in which our favorite albino scientists call it a medical condition is called steatopedia. Now, steatopedia is the reasons why black women in general are more curvier than their white counterparts. But the reason why these guys call it the white albinos, or the albinos in general call it a medical condition, is because of the fact of white supremacy which still works amongst us. The reason is this: when they label it a condition, they give the albino women comfort in themselves that they don't have this kind of hips, you know what I mean? So it's a medical condition, it's some sort of disease. So if a woman now, if an albino looks at another lady with extra large hips and she's black, she thinks it's a medical condition. It gives them that comfort that they don't have those kind of hips. But as you can see at this particular website, even when they're trying to make it look like there is something wrong with black women looking this way, they actually put them an albino as well right here. All right, just to make themselves feel bad. Because if you read through this particular web page, you can pause the video at any point in time and copy out the link right there and go read up on it. You will see that since this black woman has the largest hips in the world, the white albino, or the white albino supremacy is still at work, will try to make it look like this is a condition that they can have as well. And so even though they mention Michele Raffanelli, they put up another lady here, and as you can see, the hip on this one is different from this, because this is bone structure, this is fat. All right, so if you scroll down into this particular web page, you'll see that this lady is going to be named number 1, the black lady with the widest hips. Then you're going to have another lady right here who happens to look black as well. But as you scroll down, you find this white lady which has, this is blobs and blobs of fat. And they call her that she has one of the widest hips, and her name is Claudia with 64 inches. But you can see clearly that this is fat. This ain't no hips, all right? And then they mentioned this last lady, which they had put up on the previous page over there, all right, as maybe, having hips as well as the black woman. So which one is it? You label black people with, say they have medical conditions from the way they look, and then you still try to own up, right, to make you look like you also have it. Which one is it? Kim Kardashian, for example, has a fake behind and everything else, and is still trying to make copies of black folk, but at the same time you're telling them that they have medical conditions. So it's just something I just wanted to put out there before I go into further into making you understand the science behind why black women are shaped that way, and then make you understand why, if you've watched old days movies, and you would see women like having wearing what they call a hoop skirt. Let me show you that. And you've seen this is the picture, right? It's called a hoop skirt, in which you've seen like the albino royalty in Europe wear stuff like this, which looks so cumbersome to wear. All right, I'll show you some more pictures, but it's called a hoop skirt, which makes them look like they have excessive behinds. The reason behind a lot of those movies in trying to make these white women look like they had a behind, and make you understand that this was something that was prevalent in the black European culture of royalty way back in the day. It's something that's always been attributed to black people. And when the Albanic people or the Albanic fake royalty came into Europe, they tried to copy the same form of royalty, but they don't have naturally the hips or the bone structure to support that kind of hips. So they have to make these hoop skirts and portray to us in trying to copy the royalty that was there before them. All right. So for example, I'll show you some of the movies that you might have watched and didn't quite understand, because the question was always nagging in someone's mind: why would women, or especially those are royalty in Europe or women in Europe, wear this kind of clothes? It's so cumbersome. They couldn't walk. I mean, in movies you could see they couldn't walk, they couldn't run in it. It was so cumbersome to carry about. I mean, it's heavy stuff for clothing, and usually clothing, you try to make it as comfortable as possible. Why would you put yourself, all right, through this kind of trouble in clothes? Is because they were covering up facts, all right, and trying to copy the black royalty that existed, all right, before them. So let me show you one of the movies that you could go take a look to see this. There's a whole lot of movies. If you watch any movies made, maybe let's say in the 90s, or has the setting for the movies made in like the 1960s and thereabout, then you see all this. But let me show you. So this are pictures taken from a movie called, The King and I. You would see, the white Europeans or the Albanic Europeans dressed in this kind of things. There is a history behind it. So here's an example of one right there. Here is another example. As you can see, this kind of clothing like that. And maybe you had always wondered, because as a kid, watching TV, you wonder, why are they wearing this kind of clothes? It doesn't make any sense. It's so cumbersome with so much load. A hoop skirt. There's a history behind it, and that's what we are trying to make you understand, because white supremacy, has made us to believe that they're the most intelligent, people in the world. And they give so many reasons for their intelligence superiority over everybody else through making such things as like, let's say, IQ test. And if you notice, in most IQ tests, it seems like the blacks always come up short. So is that for real? Is that reality? Because the truth is, intelligence, I'm trying to find the right way to put it. Intelligence, there's no such thing as one person being intelligent than the other, in all truth and honesty. Because the best way to put it is this: if you say you're intelligent, all right, you have to measure that intelligence. So who is the measurement based on? All right, because for example, intelligence is more like telling you, tell me what I know, all right, and then that means you're intelligent, all right. Because, for example, a lot of people might watch the videos on this particular channel, and I might be telling them stuff that they've never known, and to them they might say I am intelligent, but I'm not. I'm just telling you what I know, because I do not know what you know. Does it make sense? So for you to say you're intelligent, the way it's based in today's world is tell me what I know, and that makes you intelligent. If it was reversed, would it be the same thing? If the person you told or you were asking the questions of, because when you go to take a test or take any form of test, is based on the fact, tell me what I know, what I have considered to be intelligent thinking, and then that makes you intelligent. So that's the reality that we live in. So if you do not know what somebody else knows, it doesn't mean that you're not intelligent. It's just maybe what you know might be nonsense. Because according to the Bible, the way God even puts intelligence to us is the fact that he says that the wisdom, the intelligence of this world is foolishness. Let me read that to you just in case you've never seen it before. So I'm reading from 1 Corinthians chapter number 1, all right, from verse number 20. It says, where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? All right. Who is disputing this world? Had not God made the wisdom of this world foolishness? So that means all the freaking scientists around the world, the albino scientists who claim they know stuff, when God looks upon them, he looks to them as being foolish. So who is wise now? So you can understand that wisdom or intelligence is based on who says it is. It is not actual intelligence. So if, for example, your physics department gives you an A in your course and they say that you're intelligent, it's based on what they say. But supposing you go to a chemistry class and the chemistry class gives you like a D, does that mean that you're not intelligent? The Department of Physics gave you an A. So you can see how intelligence is not, measured. It's the most way I can put it, it's nonsense. It's just absolute nonsense. Because it's just based on what another person knows. It's not based on what the person knows. It's not based on what you know. It's based on what somebody else knows. And that's accounted for intelligence. And that's what, white supremacy has made us believe today as being intelligent. And they try to make blacks look like that they are not as intelligent as them. When a black man, I think it's a Nigerian, if I've come to believe, discovered the fastest and highest way to make computers compute stuff and bring results. His name, I think, was Emeka. Let me actually find his name and say it right. Hold on a second. So his name is Philip Emeagwali. They say he discovered the fastest way to make computers compute. He's the reason why we have, processors that they call quad core processors. You see that a lot of your Intel. Maybe you're buying a laptop. You see quad core. He is the man responsible for it. But the white albinic, society, the albinos who run this world, will never ever mention his name like it should be mentioned, because he's the man responsible for making a computer so fast, or any laptop or phone or whatever that you're using responsible today. His name is Emeka Emeagwali. That's his name. They say Philip Emeagwali is a Nigerian. He is Nigerian, and this is one of the people that you rank as, very, very, let's say, non-intelligent with very low IQ. He's an African. All right. They say Philip Emeagwali is a Nigerian computer scientist. He has been living in the United States for many years. And Igbo, he won the 1989 Gordon Bell Prize for price performance in high performance computing applications in an all reservoir modeling calculation using a novel mathematical formulation and implementation. Let's read further. So you can see this man, he said Emeka Emeagwali was born in Akure, Nigeria on 23rd August 1954. His early schooling was suspended. So he even got his education in Nigeria. All right. And he said, let's see what the supercomputing he did here. He says, Emeagwali received the 1989 Gordon Bell Prize for an application of the CM2 massively parallel computer. The application used computational fluid dynamics for all reservoir modeling. He won in the price performance category with a performance figure of about 400 MFLOPS, over $1 million. The winner in the performance category, mobile research and thinking machines, used the CM2 for seismic data processing and achieved the ratio of 5. So for the seismic projection of how earthquakes work, this is the man responsible for it. It goes on to say here, his method involved each microprocessor communicating with 6 neighbors. So here's the reason for what we call the quad core computing process, like I've said before. So if this dude is the guy who discovered this, a black man, does it stand up to the taste of the fact that they say that white, as I call them, albinos, have the highest IQ as we've been made to believe, when this black man from Nigeria and African gave us the reason for having good, fast computers, which we're using today? Does that stand up to the test? What the white albino superiority will tell you, that this is just a 1 in a million. It's a rare occurrence as the answer. That generally white albinos, or albinos in general, have, the greater intelligence quotient factor. All right, so let's go back into explaining the science behind the reason that you saw those women, those white European royalty wearing hoop skirts in trying to portray black people. And maybe you've watched maybe if you watched the movie by Eddie Murphy, I think it's called Coming to America, in which the character Arsenio Hall tells Eddie Murphy that his princess, has to have wide hips, all right, is because by the end of this video you get to understand that it's because that way back in history, to be considered royalty, because it was the blacks that were the royalty, the hips had to be very, very wide for a king or a queen. All right. The reason being this is that you always have to, I mean, it's normal in everybody's mind. You pay attention to a woman with hips. It seems like her presence in a room commands attention because of the hips. Why is that the case? Because hips always signify, womanhood. And some people might say, okay, it's better that the chest of a woman gets more attraction, but it's not true, because you can only see the chest from the front. You can't see the chest from the back, all right? But with a woman with hips, wherever she is, from the side, from the front, you just stand to see, that this woman has hips. So now, what we're saying here is we're not talking about the fact that because you have to understand, all women have hips below their crotch. So that's not what we're talking about here. So what we are talking about is the fact that black women in general have a different kind of hip structure, which makes them stand out because of their bone structure. So here we're not just talking about the fat patterning around the hips. We're talking about the bone structure that gives them that ability. Because by the time we get into the video, you understand the reason why black women are more curvier than their albinos, because the torso of the body for black women are shorter because of their bone structure. The torsos of albinos are longer. And also because of that long extended nature, it doesn't allow the pelvic tilt to be as much as that of black women. So that pelvic tilt right there is more pronounced in black women because of their bone structure. So that's what we're going to show you, so you can clearly see, to understand the reason why the fake European albino royalty had to be wearing hoop skirts in trying to imitate the black European royalty who were there before them, in that they had these extra large hips, and it was a requirement for being a princess or royalty. Because even up till today, other females get intimidated by other females with extra huge hips. All right, I mean, it's normal. Women get intimidated by that. If a woman has more hips than you kind of feel intimidated, or there's something wrong. It still happens today. So it's the reason why, the white albino superiority had to come up with a term called stereopedia to make it sound like it's some sort of genetic condition or abnormality for women to have this kind of black women to have this kind of hips that they don't, so that they don't get intimidated. So then, when they look at a woman, let's say somebody who's albino and brainwashed, you're going to say, hey, it's a medical condition. They have a disease. Don't worry about that. So that they can feel good inside themselves, because they can be that way. Because in general, if you put white women, or let's say albinos and black together, 6 out of 10, always, all the time, 6 out of 10 are going to be more curvier with hips than albinos. And the albinos is probably going to be like 1 out of 5 women. All right, and when in black women is going to be general in 6 out of 10. And then when we talk about like African women in general, because blacks come from everywhere around the world, but African women in general, especially people from Southern Africa, is like 8 out of 10 have hips, extraordinarily larger hips than other people around. And sub-Saharan Africa is more like 7 out of 10. So in South Africa, it's like a normal occurrence. Every woman has huge ginormous hips. All right, so we're gonna show you all of that. We'll start with the signs of why that is. then we'll work our way down, and then you'll tend to understand why the white European royalty had to be wearing hoop skirts in trying to look like the black European royalty that were there before them. So let's go. So one of the differences that makes black women in general have makes them more curvier than albinos is because of the torso length. So blacks in general have a short torso length, and albinos, that means anybody with straight hair, has a longer torso length. So because of that torso length, it makes the albinos not to be so stacked. That means things are elongated in the torso region. All right. So it doesn't allow for the limbs to be stacked the proper way. What with blacks, the torsos are shorter, so it causes everything to be much more stacked in the middle. So that's the reason why black women in general will have more the curvier bosom and figure than their albino counterparts. Now we've showed this article before on the myth of whiteness, part number 12, which I suggest that you would have to watch first before you continue with this one. You can pause the video at any point in time and copy out this link. It's from Life Science, and we talked about it before, but we'll just go over it a bit because we're trying to start with the signs of stereopedia, as they medically call it to be a condition by a favorite albino scientist. So it says here that results show that the average sitting height of let me start here. It says okay, it says results shows the average sitting height of blacks was about 1.5 inches, 3 centimeters shorter than that of whites who were the same height. So that means even of the same height, when you compare the torsos, is going to be shorter for black. You guys can go do this research on your own, so it doesn't just seem like I'm just talking. If you have somebody who's the same height with you, the same sex, do the investigation on your own and see if it's fact or it's just something that they just told you. It says let me start reading it right so you guys can get to the bottom of this. It says, in the study, the scientists gathered data available from the militaries of 17 nations. Militaries measured their recruits for uniform fittings and a reliable source of data, Bajan said, to approximate torso length. The scientists compared the average height of the military men with their sitting height, the distance from a chair to the top of their head. Results showed the average sitting height of blacks was about 1.5 inches, 3 centimeters shorter than that of whites who were the same height. This means that among blacks and whites of the same height, the legs of blacks were longer, all right, while the torsos of whites were longer. That's the emphasis right there. The legs of black, that means the limbs, all right, of blacks were longer while the torsos of whites were longer. You can read much more into the document if you want, but the thing that I wanted to mention was because let's see if I can find that again here up here. It says hold on one second. Okay, what I wanted to say is show in this particular document was that they said that this physical differences gives a black athlete. That means the physical differences of having a shorter torso and longer limbs gives a black athlete an advantage even against an athlete of another fake race, as we know it, is who is tall and has a higher center of gravity, said Bajan. From a physics perspective, Bajan said the legs do the work of running and the torso of the body is just extra weight. So that means that if the torso is longer, right, it's just extra weight for you to carry. And then a shorter torso, in which blacks have, even though blacks naturally will wear heavier more than whites because of their bone structure, but the torso length is now considered a problem. So it's not really that's the best way to say it when you're running. So that torso length right there is the difference between black women having much more curvier figures than their albino counterparts. Now, before I get any further into this particular article or get more further into the video, there's just one thing I just thought that I should just put out here so that people should understand. Now, a lot of people have a problem with, let's say, albinos or whites, as we call them, as we label them, running or being the leaders of this world. people have to understand, especially if you believe in God, you have to understand that nothing happens by chance. All right, there is a deliberate reason why albinos are running the world today. Okay, so it's also, you have also have to understand that, God is a wise God. All right, so for you to be angry and mad about it is not the problem. The problem that God has always had with leadership right from the beginning of the book of Genesis is always been about the abuse of leadership. Okay, abuse. So what's happening here is that even though albinos are running the world, they have abused that position as leaders. So that's what God always had a problem with. So for example, when Solomon, King Shlomo, that's the right pronunciation, was the king of Israel, he abused his position as king, and that's when God had a problem with him. Same with David. The Bible says that David was a man after God's heart, and God declared him as such, that this is a man after my own heart. But David also abused his position of power by killing a man and taking his wife. So it's not about the leadership, because a lot of people might come on to the videos or watch the videos when we're talking about the myth of whiteness. It's not talking about the leadership. It's talking about the abuse of leadership. The lies that have been fed us because they're abusing it. All right. So you have to understand that nothing happens by chance. For example, the Bible says that Satan is the god of this age. Who made him a god of this age? Was that the right word? Because you have to understand, the way the Bible puts it means that God would have allowed Satan to be the god of this age, the age of human beings in which we live in. So that means Satan has a role in this world. So it was not about the role of what Satan is doing, it's about that he has abused it. I don't know if I put it right. So it's always about the abuse of leadership that God has a problem with, and not with the leaders or the person per se. Okay? Because you have to understand, I don't have so much time to be talking about this so you guys can understand what Satan's role is and why things are the way they is. But because I'm gonna put it in a book at the end of the day, and then I'm gonna let you guys know when it's ready, and then you guys can have it. So the best way I'm trying to explain this is because from God's ideology and God's mindset, He wants to give everybody a chance. All right, everybody the perfect chance, so they are not without excuse when they wake up like that rich man and Lazarus woke up and found himself in a place that's horrible and full of torment. Because this world is like some sort of duality. You can have the best of the best happening in this world, and this world can also be like hell. So God's trying to make you understand both of them so that you can make the right choice. Because things can be so good that it feels like heaven, and things can be so bad that it feels like hell. So if you can experience both of that, both the heaven and the hell, then you have an understanding of where you might be going later on when you're out of here. All right? Because if you think this world is hell, you can add maybe 1,000,000 times. You can multiply that by 10 million times, or any amount greater than 10 million. Then you would understand what hell is like, so that you can make the right choice. If you feel that this place is heaven, you can multiply it by 10 million times and know what heaven would be like. Not that we're going to go to heaven, but know how it would be like, how paradise, maybe that's the right word to put, or Eden would be like, so that you could understand what you have. So the problem here is not about the leadership, because all through history, in God's ideology, the way He's thinking is that all through history, the strong have always been the leaders. All right? But when Yehoshua came, He said, the meek shall inherit the earth. The concept was changed. Instead of the strong leading everybody else, or instead of the strong or the stronger leading the strong, the concept changed. God now wanted to give the weaker people, all right, a right to leadership as well, so that they would not be without excuse to say that they weren't leaders because they were weak. So in this case, it makes very, very much sense that God would allow Satan, give him the ability to make the albino people be the leaders in today's world. So if God allowed that, then you can question the leadership. What you ought to be questioning is the abuse of leadership in what the albinos are doing, in what God has always asked everybody in this world to do. Question the abuse of leadership. That's always been the story. Because you remember the story, Yoshua once told a story about a servant and a master, in which the master left the servant to be a caretaker of his place, and this servant had owed the master so much money. All right. And when the master left, this servant was abusing the other servants that he was under, all right, that were under him rather, because of the money they owed him. And so when the master came back, he was very, very mad. He said, you owed me this kind of money, but I didn't abuse you. Why would you abuse the others who owe you money? And he threw him out and made him suffer. So the problem has always been the abuse of leadership and not the leadership per se. So for a lot of people who have come to, dislike the fact or whatsoever that, the albino people are in power and everything else, that's none of your business. Your problem is talking about the leadership. It's not a problem of who's leading you. It's about the abuse of leadership. So do what you have to do and stop worrying about other stuff, all right? So let's get on to showing you some other stuff right here on why the black women in general have shorter torsos, are more curvier than their albino counterpart, and have this condition that albinos have said that we have that black folks generally black folks in general have, like, what they call steatopygia, a medical condition. So let's do that. So you can pause the video at any point in time and copy out this link and go read up on it. We've already done so before, but we just want to show you the reasons why things are the way they are. All right. So first of all, it says here that that using neutron activation analysis, Kone et al. Measured the total body of calcium, phosphorus, sodium, chlorine, and potassium contents of blacks. After the data was normalized for body size and age, blacks had significantly higher mean calcium and potassium values than those reported previously for whites. So this is part of the reason why blacks, women generally, are more curvier, that the albino people, albino scientists, label it a medical condition to make their own white female feel good about themselves, esteem themselves, that they don't have this kind of features, even though when they're trying to copy it like Kim Kardashian, as I'll show you some pictures later on to see what's really going on. So this is part of the reason, one of the reasons why the black women are more curvier. Let's scroll farther into the document just to show you some other stuff. So the next thing I want to read to you is that it's normal in architecture or when you're building stuff that you're always as strong as your strongest point, or the way they put it, you're always weak at your weakest point. So for example, how high a building goes or how high a building is built is dependent on how strong the structure is. So a building cannot carry more than the structure that its skeletal frame can carry. All right. So the reason why this is all important is because generally blacks have a higher bone density. So black women in general, so they are able, all right, to carry a lot of like stress and things that are necessary for the hips to be the way they are. So that's the best way I can put it. So what I wanted to show you from this particular document says here that it says serum, 17 beta estradiol growth hormone concentration and secretion, and bone mass density were all greater in blacks than in whites. The authors suggested that the higher circulating estradiol concentration in blacks may have contributed to the greater secretion of growth hormone, which in turn led to an increase in bone mass. So that's part of the reason why black women are much more curvy as well, because they have a greater bone mass, so they're able to distribute the weight and the fat around their body properly to be able to carry that mass, when especially for, like, albinos, that they can do that. Let me scroll down and just show you some more things in here then before we can get into this picture correctly. So it goes on to say here that Hene, that means the person who's doing all this, one of the person who's doing all this scientific investigation on the different structures between blacks and albinos, says Hene 35 suggested that bone mass content, okay, bone mass content and bone mass density may be regulated by mechanostat, which is analogous to a thermostat that regulates temperature. According to the mechanostat theory, a network of osteocytes detects bone strain and modulates the activity of remodeling cells. The mechanostat set point in blacks is lower than in whites. That is, the strain needed to trigger bone growth is less in blacks, giving them denser bones. So you can see why it seems like, a lot of albino people have bone problems compared to their black counterparts. Now we're going to read further into the page to show you some of the reasons why black people can be obese, the reasons why behind the obese, as the scientific studies show in this particular article. So let me scroll down a bit more and show you that. So for especially people who are obese, and because it seems like when blacks tend to be obese, they tend to be more obese than others, because their bone structure in the first place is able to carry so much weight of fat. So that's one of the reasons why. So you have to understand why they are able to carry so much stress, so they are able to gain more weight than anybody else when they are getting obese. So according to this article, it says, according to John Top's civilization syndrome hypothesis, all right, that means civilization. What does it mean, civilization? Because the Western world has made us to believe that that they live far better, all right, than the third world countries, as they call it, because of how civilized they are. But civilization has only made us to be more lazy and to make us more retarded. That's the best way I can put it. Civilization has made us more retarded. There's a reason why, but I'm not going to talk about it today because there's no time. I'll put it in a book, and then I'll explain so much stuff that you guys can understand. But civilization, the more civilized we are, we have become more retarded because we are getting more lazy. That's just the actual truth. So it goes on to say here that stress and poor coping mechanisms such as smoking and alcohol consumption combined with overeating and physical inactivity lead to insulin resistance and visceral obesity, which attacks blacks more because their bone structures can carry more weight than any other ethnicity or albinos, as the case may be. So that's the reason why blacks tend to be more obese. The bone structure can carry the weight. All right, so it goes on to say here, what I want you guys to notice is the relation between fat patterns and lifestyle factors may vary by ethnicity, of course. Regardless of the cause, research indicates that differences in fat patterning exist between blacks and whites. So it's now talking about, we're going back to the reasons of why black women in general are more curvier, all right? It goes on to say that the relation between fat patterns and lifestyle factors may vary by ethnicity. Regardless of the cause, research indicates that differences in fat patterning exist between blacks and whites. Relative to the fat deposition patterning of whites, blacks tend to have less subcutaneous fat in the extremities than in the trunk. Blacks also tend to carry relatively more fat on the back and lateral portions of the body, and whites have greater amounts of subcutaneous fat on the front of their bodies. So that's the reason why, one of the reasons why black women generally are more curvier. What it's saying here is that albinos in general carry their weight to the front of their body. So that means if they're stocking up weight and fat, it's going to be much more to the front. for black people, it's generally more backwards. So that means you can see that's the reason why a black female will have more hips and thighs, because of that visceral fat being deposited backwards than in the case of, like, albinos, which are depositing it in front of them. So let me go read on and show you some more stuff here, and then we can still continue on and talk about stupophagia and the many harrowing things that the albinos have heaped on black people for having just a great body. That's just the best way I can put it. So let's go further. So here is the part that I wanted you guys to see, in which the reasons why black people generally are more curvier than the albino counterparts. It says here, the black women had the smallest waist to hip ratio, but had greater suprailiac and abdominal skin thicknesses than white women. This means that the smaller waist to hip ratio makes you more curvier, because the waist is much more tiny and the hips are much more wider. All right, and also compounded with the fact that the torsos of albinos in general are longer, so it makes the black woman much more curvier, and have and with their bone structure and everything, have greater hips and looking more rounded than their females. Because as you can see right here, it also talks about that they had the suprailiac and abdominal skin fullness thicknesses than white women. So what that means is that when the skin folds, the skin is not loose and is not hanging around, it's firm. All right, that's the best way I can explain it. So let's move on and show you what stupophagia is, and the many images that are accompanied with it that make it look like black people have a condition. And then we're gonna make you understand the reason why the white albino royalty in Europe had to be wearing hoop skirts in trying to portray, like I've said earlier before, black royalty, which always meant that you always had to have hips, because the hips of a woman gave her presence, so she could be counted as a queen or princess in her community, because it demanded attention. Even as it is up till today, a woman with hips just commands the attention. That's just the way it is. So let's move on now. So we start here to compare the men first before we show you, because I didn't want to, like I said, the pictures that I'm going to show you will contain a lot of nudity. So I apologize for it. If you don't like it, you just have to quit the video and just keep going. I don't want you going up on here and say, oh, I'm showing nudity. I'm not a Christian, by the way. So when you even say that, that even pisses me off the most. If you're not used to seeing your own body nude and other people around you nude, if you've never seen a nude body before, then you can say it. But if you have, then you have no excuse for complaining. That's just the best way I can put it. So here are two bodybuilders. I'm using bodybuilders because it's like one of the best ways to show you the examples of what we just talked about in the body physiology and how different they are. Now, to your right, this black bodybuilder here, his name is Phil Heath. He's a 7-time Mr. Olympia. All right, he's a 7-time Mr. Olympia. To your left is an albino by the name of Jay Cutler. All right, name is Jay Cutler. He's a 4-time Mr. Olympia. Now, what we are comparing here is for you to see what we are talking about, because we just read it to you, but I want you to see it physically now. When you look at the bodies of these two people, you will notice that where Phil Heath's belly button is higher than that of Jay Cutler. So if I draw a line right here, you can see that right there. All right, this is the location of where the belly button of Phil Heath would be, because he's black. So that goes to show you that his torso is shorter. So if you see the length of the torso from down here, from Jay Cutler's neck down to his waist right here, you would know that it's longer, because if you draw a line from this point, all right, you would see that this is exactly where the torso of Jay Cutler starts, while that of Phil Heath starts higher up. Okay, so that's just what I wanted to show you. Now we're not going to talk about the muscle density here and anything else, but because these guys are like walking, they're a walking drugstore, right? They're taking so much medication to have this kind of muscular structure that looks this way. But what we could talk about is how compact the muscles are compared on both of them. If you notice that Phil Heath's Jay Cutler's tummy, because of how long the torso is, that the length from each abdominal muscle is longer than that of Phil Heath. So that's the reason why, just trying to show you a comparison on why black women in general are more curvier, is because the torso length is shorter and makes everything to be stacked properly. They have, like I read before, they have like a smaller waist to hip ratio. Okay, so that's just what I wanted to show you, and you can see that the extremities of Phil Heath, even though they're the same height with Jay Cutler right here, is longer because his waist starts higher up from where his waist is almost starting at the height of where Jay Cutler's hands is right high up there, right around, that's where his waist starts. You can see from drawing this line right here across, that's right around there. All right, showing that he's gonna have longer legs, just like you see. And you can see right here that Jay Cutler has the shorter legs or shorter limbs than him, even though they're of the same height. And even with the arms also, you can see that even though Phil Heath is more narrow at the waist, his lat muscles, all right, the lat muscles, the muscles underneath the armpits are wider than that of Jay Cutler. The reason why Jay Cutler has the appearance of being wide is because the torso already is longer, so it makes it wider. But when you compare the muscles underneath, all right, those armpit muscles, you see right there that this is wider than this one. Okay, so because of that short torso that he has, Phil Heath is more stuck, is more like he's packed densely, all right, than Jay Cutler. And even the arms of Phil Heath are far longer, as you can see right here. The longer extremities, the arms are longer, and this one is shorter, as you just can see. You can see how long the arms that is extending all the way down here. If you draw a line from that angle right there, you could see that it's below Jay Cutler's arms, which is much more shorter, even though he looks like the bigger of the two amongst them. So this is just what's trying to show you the reasons why the black female is going to look more curvier than their albino counterpart, which white superiority so supremacy will not agree to, would always make black females look like that they are the better looking, or let's say the worst looking of them all, which is not the case. And a lot of white women have picked up on this and think that they are far better, even though in their minds and hearts they want to look black. But okay, so let's continue down to showing you reading about Stupipedia to lay the foundation for why. I'll show you a couple of pictures first of black royalty, all right, of black European royalty, which you've probably never seen in your textbooks, heard in schools, in the media, or anything at all. Then we'll go to show you, or maybe I should start with Stupipedia first. Let's start with showing the pictures of the Stupipedia and understanding the reasons why. If you've ever heard this statement before, that that women come from Venus, it was attributed to black women looking this way. I apologize again for the pictures of nudity. It's not my intention to show it. This is an educational channel, and I want everybody to keep it strictly that as usual. So let's move on. So before I go to show you the article on Stupipedia, this is the reason, one of the things I wanted to show you on why the albinos in general have come to believe that black women generally have a condition for looking the way they are, when in all actual truth, that's the way a woman should look. All right, so it says here Stupipedia, cause and origin. You can pause the video at any point in time and go read it up if you want to. It says here, the question being asked here is, could this be the only, they say, could this be the only plausible cause of this condition? Trying to make it look like it's a disease or something, so that so that the white albanic women would have some sort of comfort that they don't look this physically the way that black women are, and that it's some sort of disease or condition. You're just trying to give them that mental fortitude, or let's say it's more like trying to give them some sort of positive mental attitude about the way they look, so they don't feel bad that they don't look like their black counterparts, and still maintain the myth of whiteness and myth of white superiority upon the population. So it asks this question in this article: could be this the only plausible cause of this condition referred to as stereotypia in the biological anthropology circles? Now, if you read on here, it says the Caucasian population, which is talking about the black population, received stereotypia as a sign of beauty, and their men were more attracted to well-endowed women than thinner ones, which is always the case. All right, it's always the case. But today, this type of beauty is frowned upon, because the reason why it's frowned upon is because the albinic population do not look like their black counterparts, and since they are the elite today, and the ones running the world, they have to make their standard of beauty to be the standard of beauty when it is not in the first place, so that they feel good about themselves, that they don't look like black women. But as you can see, that's just what that article says. And let's move on and show you how they define stereotypia. And we're going to talk about a woman who has suffered so much under that form. Her name would be Sarah Baartman. She was taken around Europe at the time that the white supremacists came into power in Europe, and made to look like a zoo animal. She died. According to the article, which I'll show you, it would say that she died of maybe she was sick or something like that. But the truth was, this woman was raped. They would have like tons of albino men run up on this woman like crazy. So like every show she went, she would have maybe like up to like maybe 30, 40, 60, 100 men having sex with her. And that's what caused this woman to die. She died of so many diseases. I will show. It's a horrifying story to show you how the albinic people have abused the power that God has given them for a reason, in trying to make us understand, trying to paint a picture of showing us how the meek shall inherit the earth and the weak shall rule over the strong, because God changed the script. But they've abused that opportunity. So let me show you that, and let's keep on talking about continuing on the myth of whiteness, part number 13. So I'm on the web page that talks about stereotypia. You can pause the video at any point in time, and on the Wikipedia page, it says here stereotypia. Let me see if I can blow this up a little bit more so you guys can actually see clearly what I'm saying. It says here, stereotypia is the state of having substantial levels of tissue on the buttocks and thighs. The bill is not confined to the gluteal regions, but extended to the outside and front of the thighs and tapers to the knee, producing a curvaceous figure. The term is from the Greek steer, meaning tallow, and puge, meaning rump. Let's go on to, because I want you to read see the history, so you can see how the albinic white albinos lie about this history in trying to conform the image, all right, of how people should look into an albinic one. It says here, stereotypia is a genetic characteristic found in women of sub-Saharan African origin. That means it's accredited. When they start using this kind of terminology, you should know it's talking about black people, because they always want to make you believe that all black people came from Africa. So you have to understand that. It says stereotypia is a genetic characteristic found in women of sub-Saharan African origin, most notably but not solely among the Caucasian of Southern Africa and Pygmies of Central Africa. Like I've said before, black women in general are all curvier, all right? But the South African women, for example, seem to be more curvier than the rest of the whole entire black population. So, for example, if 7 out of 10 women, let's say the correct way would be, let's say 7 out of 10 black women are curvy, all right? In South Africa, it would be 8 out of 10. It would seem like you're seeing them everywhere. And let me just show you a picture of that before we continue on. So here is a picture of South African women just walking on the street. As you can see right here, they seem to already have more hips than regular black folk, like this woman right here and this one right there and everybody around. Look at even the lady walking behind, right? This is just regular South Africans on the street, all right? It's not like a studio or whatever. It's just a shot that you take. So like I said before, if 7 out of 10 women, all right, in blacks are curvier, in South Africa it's like 8 out of 10. It's like everywhere you turn. I'll show you some other pictures in here again. And here is a South African woman. As you can see, the hips are extraordinary, huge. I mean, this is just regular in South Africa. That's her right there. That's her right there. That's her right there. And like I said before, hips are always commanding respect. It's the part of the reason why, like I'll show you later on, why the white Albanian women had to be wearing hoop skirts, and we're gonna read about it so you can understand and see the reasons why behind this. And then also, this is just two South African, police women. As you can see, the hips are extraordinarily very, very huge. This is a genetic I would use a genetic trait for most women of that area, especially the area of South Africa. When I'm talking about South Africa, I'm not talking about the country called South Africa, right? I'm talking about the southern region of Africa, which has countries like, I think, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Angola, and the rest. So that's what I'm talking about here. So let me show you. Let's go back to reading the Stipopedia article. Then we can come back and continue this. All right. So let's go. So I go on to read from an article on Stipopedia as I was reading before. You can pause the video, sorry, and copy out the link and go read up on it. It says here, like I continue on reading, it says Stipopedia is a genetic characteristic found in women of sub-Saharan African origin, most notably, but not solely, among the Caucasian of Southern Africa, not South Africa, Southern Africa, and Pygmies of Central Africa. It has also been observed among the Andamanese people. The Andamanese people are like the ancestors of the so-called albino Japanese that we have today, all right, such as the Onge tribe in the Andaman Islands of the Indian Ocean. In most populations of the Homo sapien, and I think I've showed before on this video, on this particular series, that the Andamanese, even still today, are still black with woolly hair. You can go look that up. Just type in your search menu, Andamanese, Andaman Island, black woolly haired people. Let me actually do this on this video so you guys can actually see that. So as you can see right here, I typed in black woolly haired Andamans, all right, from the Andaman Islands. As you can see, these are the people who are considered to be the ancestors of the Japanese today, as you can see, but they still have woolly hair. They still have woolly hair on the Andaman Islands. So that's just what I wanted to show you. So keep on reading so you guys can understand what I was trying to say earlier before. So they said the Andamanese people, such as the Onge tribe in the Andaman Islands of the Indian Ocean, in most populations of Homo sapiens. Now, this is where the lie starts getting in, because it's not in most, it's in black populations. Females are more likely than the male counterparts to accumulate adipose tissue in the buttock region. This genetic characteristic is prevalent among women, but also occurs to a lesser degree in men. Now, Stipopedia would seem to have been a characteristic of a population which once extended from the Gulf of Aden to the Cape of Good Hope, from which peoples the Caucasian and Pygmies may be remnants. Now they're starting to tell you truth about the history of this world. All right. Now among the Caucasian, if you're wondering about who the Caucasian, the term because the term is Bushmen. This was a term that was used to describe the Caucasian people, Bushmen, if you've ever heard of that before. And then later on, the albino said it's too derogatory. We shouldn't call them Bushmen. We should just call them Caucasian. All right. I just want to let you know the history behind it. It says it begins in infancy and is fully developed by the time of the first pregnancy, while the Caucasian afford the most noticeable examples of its development. Now, this Caucasian woman that you're seeing right here in this picture on the Wikipedia page is Sarah Baartman. That's the person I was trying to tell you about, that she was carried around like some sort of animal in a zoo. So they would be setting up, they still have like, they have a skeleton of Sarah Baartman in a particular museum, which I'm going to show you. The skeleton and her remains are showing her this form. This is how despicable albino leadership has been to its people. All right. And they made this woman. This woman died because she was raped so many times. I can't even begin to explain it. So the whole entire idea of taking her around was so that this albino men, these white men, could see and rape this woman. It's been noted that I think it seems like over maybe close to maybe 200,000 or even more men has slept with this woman, because she went from town to town. It was just like when a show, let's say a circus goes to town, they go from town to town, and this is what they did. Let me keep on reading, or we'll get back to that later. I'm trying to show you the history so you can understand where the words come from, so that when these people are trying to lie over you and fake your history, you know better. It goes on to say that here, like it says, among the quotient, it begins in infancy and is fully developed by the time of the first pregnancy. While the quotient affords the most noticeable examples of its development, is by no means rare in other parts of Africa. So at least they're trying to tell you the truth. It's by no means rare because black women have this kind of hips. All right, I'm talking about the kind of hips that you can put a cup on top behind it and the cup stays, or you can put a bottle of water right here and it stays right there. So I want you guys to know the difference. There is no albino who has those kind of hips, because generally albinic women, like I've shown you before, tend to layer fat most on the front, and blacks do it mostly on the back. All right. So because of that, and because also the torso of albinic women are longer. All right. So this part cannot support this. All right. The torso is longer. All right. And secondly, when the albino women lay up fat, they lay up flat on the front and not on the back. So when you look at maybe an albino woman with hips, you can see the hips very, very wide from the front. All right. When she turns around from the back, it's all flat behind it. But with our black women in general, the pelvis is so much tilted because of the short torso. As you're going to see later on here, that the pelvic tilt is about 90 degrees in most black women and less. So that's why the black women have more curvier figures, because of that pelvic tilt that is so noticeable. And then for black women, it's much more subtle, even though there's still a pelvic tilt. Okay, so I read on to say here, it said, it has been suggested that this feature was once more widespread. Well, it is true. It was in everybody. It still is, because it's black, but it's no longer widespread now because we have a lot of albinos. All right. It says Paleothelic. Now, this is a point that I want you to start taking notice of. It says Paleothelic Venus figurines, sometimes referred to as Steatopygian Venus figures, discovered from Europe to Asia. Can you see that? From Europe to Asia. Now, they're starting to tell you a bit of truth, because Europe was black as it was in Asia before centuries of inbreeding among those black populations started giving birth to albinos, which is the case. Inbreeding meaning here that the family unit of father, mother, son, and daughter are inbreeding amongst themselves and not breeding outside of that population or genetic gene pool. Okay, so presenting a remarkable development of the thighs. I keep on reading. Presenting a remarkable development of the thighs and even the prolongation. Now, here is the part that it's a lie. They say the prolongation of the labia minora, because they're trying to make, the white albino population think that having this kind of hips, or the way black women look in general, is a problem. They have to put that it elongates the labia minora. You guys should know what the labia minora is. I'm not going to say it verbally here. So they're trying to make it look like a condition, so that generally the albinic or white albinic women will not be intimidated by looking or feel some sort of, have a low self-esteem by looking at the black women looking this curvy and beautiful figure-wise, and they don't have it. It's just to make them have a good self-esteem. So they have to try to label it as a condition, a genetic abnormality, because that's all what this article is trying to do. It's telling you the truth, all right? But it's adding in the lie, so that when you read it and understand, you say, oh no, I don't want to have that. I'm going to have a labia minora prolongation for an albino woman. Okay, so let's keep on reading. Have been used to support this. See what they're saying now? They say that the prolongation of the labia minora has been used to support this theory. Okay, so that is where the lie kicks in, which I wanted you guys to notice. But the one thing I wanted you to notice is that it says that Venus, all right, Paleothelic Venus figures. This is where you get the idea that women are from Venus and men from Mars, because of how black women look, all right, in that they have the ability to be more curvier than albinos in general, all right. So it goes on to say here that let me the part I want you guys to notice is about the angle of the tilt. It says they say that these figures, this is when they start lying now. We say these figures, that means the Venus figurines. These figures do not qualify as steeple-pigeon since they exhibit an angle of approximately 120 degrees between the back and the buttocks, while steeple-pigeon is diagnosed by modern medical standards of an angle of about 90 degrees only. But it's not true, all right? It is not true. They're trying to make you understand that it is not the case, because the whole idea of this article telling you the truth, all right, of telling you that these guys were in Europe to Asia, all right, is to make you believe that it is a condition, and says that this causes it, that this, if you have this kind of hips or whatsoever, it causes a prolongation of the labia minora, all right, so that you white females or albino females can have some sort of high self-esteem, that they don't have this medical condition. It goes on to say, the last part of the article says Sarah Baartman is believed to have had this characteristic. So as you can see here, we've pointed two things that you have to note from Europe to Asia. So now we go on to take a look, all right, at the lie that they invented to make us believe that, the hoop skirt, because this is how black royalty, like I've said before, in Europe used to look. They had to have such wide hips to command presence, this kind of hips. So when they wore their clothes, that clothes would give them that accentuating figure, all right, of making it look like they wear a hoop skirt, in which the white albinos copied. So when you watch it in movies and you are trying to understand why would they wear that kind of clothing, then you understand the stories and the falsities behind it. We're going to show you some pictures, all right, now of the women with steeple-pigeon, or as they call it, which is not, all right. It's going to contain some nudity. So like I said before, it is an educational channel, so everything here is educational. We're not objectifying any woman or any woman at all for anything. So that's just what it is. So let me show you. So here is a picture of women with steeple-pigeon, as they would call it, just having excessively huge hips that albino people can have, and which was considered royalty in Europe for the African princesses, because even in I think in Africa there's what they call African princesses. There's what they call, I think, if I'm correct, there's what they call a fattening room. So that means if you're about to get married to a king or so, what they would do is take you inside and try to make sure that your hips were coming out the right way before you got married. It was considered royalty, especially European princesses had to have this to command authority and respect when they were acting in place of their kings, all right? So because, like I've said before, it's normal even until today, a woman's hips commands attention. It's just something that you just stop, that just makes you just stop and look. All right, at least look for a minute before you try to get it away from your mind. It's just the way it is. And women, even up till today, are still intimidated by other women with hips. So these are some of the pictures of showing you, but I'm not going to blow up the pictures because, like I said, I don't want people thinking about it as a program that's showing so much graphic imagery. But what I wanted you to point you to notice of is that, for example, here that you would see someone like Kim Kardashian, right, have butt implants trying to put up this figure. We'll show you the reasons behind it, so you can see that these albinic people, the albinos, were trying to take a page out of history by making this kind of pictures relevant today, in like Kim Kardashian right there. Let me show you some black royalty. Let me I'm trying to know which way or which angle I should start showing you stuff, but let's go look at the hoop skirt first. And what the lie that they tell you about the hoop skirt, and trying to cover up this fact that when black royalty dressed, they weren't wearing hoop skirts. They just had wide hips, and those hips would show in the dress they wear, making people to understand this were royalty. So that means if you're royalty in Europe and you didn't have this kind of hips, you were looked down upon as, and you wouldn't be even considered. If you said you were a princess, they look at you and say, "Princess, really? There's nothing here, right? Because the hips would show that you're a princess, because it would demand and command attention and command a room. So let's show you some pictures of, or let's talk about the hoop skirt first, and then we can continue on and show you some other pictures of black royalty, and show you an example of how, if a woman dressed, all right, with having this kind of hips, what she would look like. So let's do that. So here is a picture of an albino wearing a hoop skirt to imitate what the black royalties of Europe looked like, all right, when they dressed up without this, because you have to understand, just wearing this hoop is too much trouble. But let's read into the lie of what they explain why these hoop skirts were worn, so you can see through it. Let's do this. It says here on Wikipedia page, you can pause the video at any point in time and copy out the link and go read up on it. It says a hoop skirt or hoop skirt is a women's undergarment worn in various periods to hold the skirt extended into a fashionable shape. Its pseudonym was farthingale. It originated as a modest-sized mechanism for holding long skirts away from one's legs. Can you believe this lie? I mean, this is ridiculous. The reason for the hoop was so that somebody could hold someone's skirts away from one's legs. This is ridiculous. Why? I mean, in today's, when you see people wear long skirts, for example, like a fake dude in Beyonce, and someone is trying to lift him up, is she wearing, or is he wearing, a hoop skirt at that point in time? Okay, so let's keep going. It says, let's see the lie the more. It says, it originated as a modest-sized mechanism for holding long skirts away from one's legs to stay cooler in hot climates. But Europe is warm. So why would you need to stay cooler in a hot climate? This doesn't make any sense at all. Let's keep on reading. So now let's read on and see some crazy more lies that these guys tell you, so that you wouldn't understand that they are covering up history right here. They say small hoops might be worn by farmers and while walking in the garden. Why would a farmer wear a hoop? And look at how the hoop is made. As you can see, he says made with cage crinoline with steel. It's made from steel. Look at this. Why would any farmer wear this to a farm? Wouldn't you have problems walking around with this? You're going to farm to work and you're wearing another heavy load? Oh, well, let's keep on reading just so you can see how this, the so-called elites, which we trust in, very intelligent albinos and scientists, can be lying to us in trying to cover up history. They say small hoops might be worn by farmers, and while walking in the garden, hoops were then adopted as a fashion item, and the size and the scale of the hoops grew in grandeur. So you could believe this nonsense, that the size, when size grows, what does that mean? Weight grows, so you just be carrying more trouble, more chances of falling into accidents, more chances of having problems walking through things or running or whatever, because they're trying to cover up history. Hoop skirts typically consist of a fabric petticoat sewn with channels designed to act as casings for stiffening materials. Can you believe this? Hoop skirts, wow. Okay. Various rope oysters, whalebone, or steel from the mid-century nylon. Lightweight hoop skirts, usually with nylon hoops, are worn today under very full skirted wedding gowns. They can sometimes be seen in the Gothic fashion scene. Reproduction hoop skirts are an essential part of living history costuming, including American Civil War reenactment. They are all trying to tell you lies of how these people dressed because they were black. And since history is going to uncover them and show that they were lying, they have to invent this and let you know that it was true. Because you can see from these pictures right here, they say, let me just make you see read what it means. It says top here is a Minoan statuette, and as you can see, this statuette is the statue of a black woman. It's a Minoan. Minoan were black people in Europe. Don't let nobody tell you lies. And as you can see, this doesn't look like this female is wearing anything underneath it. That's just because those are her hips, as we're going to show you. All right? Those were just her hips. And now they show you the white Albanic people wearing this and telling you lies that these were hoop skirts, when it was actually females, regular European royalty with hips, wearing this kind of dresses. Now, let's show you how a woman today, all right, let's say a female today with those kind of hips would look wearing a dress. Let me show you that. So I found this woman online. I'm not gonna play her video just because I just want you to take a look at the picture. Look at this. She's wearing a skirt. Does that look like a hoop to you? No, it's not. Those are just her hips. So when black European royalty, when they came into the room, all right, because of this kind of, just imagine that you saw this woman walking by. You would have to stop for a minute, all right, and just pay attention or give some respect to the hips that you see. This was normal in royalty, that when a woman walked through, you have to pay attention, because that's the only thing she had that would make you pay attention to what she's saying. At least give her some room to hear, give her some room to speak so you could hear what she has to say. Because if the king wasn't around, then the women took over. Or, you know, there's some things that they would pass on to the royalty to do. So this is what they would look like just wearing a normal dress. So it wasn't a hoop skirt. It was the hips. Okay? So when they would walk in, everybody would pay attention because this was a sign of royalty. So the female royalty, the black European royalty, so I'm going to pull up some pictures to show you, had to have this kind of hips. Otherwise, they weren't considered royalty, because this is the only way that they could, you know, have attention or be given attention. So here is one picture right here. Here's a black European royalty. Let me see what her name is here, right? You can see that right there. Her name was Jeanne d'Albert Reine de Navarre. She was a princess of France, all right, a city in France. She was Queen Joan III of Navarre from 1528 to 1572. And as you can see right there, that is the figure of a woman with very huge hips, just like the other pictures would show you. Just by looking at the way the bone structure is, because you can tell by the bone structure if a woman has hips or not. You can tell that this is a woman with very huge hips. All right, let me pull up another picture of another European royalty. This one is called, here's a statue of, let's say, who was this? Archduchess Margaret of Austria, 1480 to 1530. Was a princess of Asturias and Duchess of Savoy by her two marriages. She was governor of the Habsburg Netherlands, the place that's considered called Holland today, from 1507 to 1515, and again from 1519 to 1530. Margaret was the second child and only daughter of Maximilian of Austria and Mary of Burgundy. All right, as you can see, the features, as they actually always tell us, the nose and the lips are all so-called African features or black features. And just by looking at this woman's bone structure, what do you think she had? Just take a look at the bone structure. You would know that she had very big old hips of steeplechase. All right. Okay. Let me show you another picture of black royalty that you've never heard of. Here is it. There's another painting. And this one says the Agrippine Sibyl, all right, Netherlands, still 1575. You can tell by the way this woman's sitting that the hips are not a problem. She's not wearing a hoop. There is no hoop skirt here, all right? It's just her hips with all that clothing behind, all right? So let me show you one more picture, and then we'll move on to showing you why Kim Kardashian was made to break the internet at one point in time in a nude picture showing her bosom. All right, let me show you that. This picture first. This is another picture of black European royalty. As you can see, this is a black woman. And I'm trying to see, this portrait has been lied to, and people don't actually, know the name of the person, but the painter said that this portrait is attributed to Annibale Carracci. That means she was Italian, all right? Annibale Carracci. And as you're looking at these features right here, just by looking at the facial features of this woman and the bone structure, what kind of hips do you think she would have had underneath the clothing that she's wearing? Huge, ginormous hips, because you can tell by the bone structure of a woman who has hips and the one who doesn't. So now let's move on. Let's show you why. The reason why some time ago, I think maybe a year or 2 years ago, that Kim Kardashian stood nude and people didn't understand that it was a form of rewriting of history, trying to show you, when you know the albinos always like lying to us, the Vatican in general, when they're trying to tell you lies, trying to show us some sort of history, because now Kim Kardashian all of a sudden has big old, you know, boson when she never had it, you know, because we know it's fake. We want to show you what they were trying to imitate way back in the day. So let me show you that. So as you can see from this article, you could pause the video at any point in time and copy out this link so you can go read up on it. It says here, the sad story of Sarah Baartman. I've talked about Sarah Baartman. I'm going to talk some more about it on the video before it ends. It says, the Kim Kardashian of the 19th century. So this picture of Kim Kardashian trying to show her butt off was trying to copy or mimic Sarah Baartman, how black royalty used to look, in which they picked up Sarah Baartman and made a zoo animal out of this woman and treated her in the most inhumane way that you couldn't even treat an animal. They treated this Sarah Baartman because of how she looked in, you know, and how hips were. So this is what these guys were trying to imitate, or trying to show us something, but because we don't understand the reasons for being stuff is done, because we are so brainwashed, we were just trying to think, oh, and a lot of people would be oogling and saying, oh, Kim Kardashian is showing her fake butt off, when she actually is trying to imitate somebody else. That was the whole reason behind it. I'll show you some more pictures of this, but you can tell by this article, it's the sad story of Sarah Baartman, the Kim Kardashian of the 19th century, in what they were trying to imitate. I'll show you some pictures of Sarah Baartman as I go on. So here is another picture, right, of, you know, Kim Kardashian with Sarah Baartman, all right, just trying to show you that they were trying to make a copy, all right. Basically just laughing at people in history so that people wouldn't understand that this was what was actually being done. This is just another picture right there. And let me show you another article just to show you how they tried to turn Sarah Baartman's story into like some sort of like a Broadway show or musical. Let me show you that. You could pause the video at any point in time and copy out this link. This is just I'm going to show you some pictures of Sarah Baartman. And here you can see that this is a black woman, right? She's not wearing a hoop skirt. That's just how the hips are, okay? And here is Kim Kardashian over here trying to copy that. Right? Can you see that? So these guys are trying, they go into history and try to rewrite it so that when people are reading up on history, this is what they're going to find Kim Kardashian later on in life. They will totally not remember that this is how black European royalty used to look. As you can see right here, they're comparing Kim Kardashian to this black woman over here wearing a dress over her hips that makes her look like she's wearing a hoop skirt. There is no hoop in there. That's just the way black women are usually especially those who were considered royalty around the world. So if you go read into this document, it says here, let's see where I could start. You can see right, it says that Sarah Baartman had the genes of the people Caucasian from the Cape Coast and the rural areas of South Africa. Caucasian were a people indigenous to South Africa that was occupied by the Colonizatorat Europeans, and the peoples, that means the colonized Europeans, right? And the peoples Nguni who came from Africa, East and Central, with Caucasianat, or distinguished people in the other with the physical character. And now this particular web page is translated from a language, from Albanian, so it's not saying the right thing. So maybe I shouldn't even bother reading. I'll read it in English for you to understand. What I wanted you to take notice of is that they said the Europeans considered them as people primitive, resistant, and less evolved. That means the white Europeans considered people with hips this way less. Can you imagine what these people say about people? All right. And so this is a representation of how Sarah Baartman was carried around looking like a zoo animal. She was always in chains like this. They would bring her into a zoo, as you can see this woman portraying that particular story, and then she would be presented to men in a circus show, and the men would go on to rape her. And this is the pictures of Sarah Baartman in a museum somewhere in Europe. As you can see, that's her frame right there. pictures of how she looked, wax pictures of how she actually looked in person. Let me show you some other pictures. So like, let's just a picture of again of Kim Kardashian trying to imitate a woman, European royalty having those kind of hips and trying to say that they have it, when in fact this doesn't exist in the Albanic community. All right, so what else do I have to show you here? Because I think I've come to the end of this particular presentation. Yeah, I want to read something and show you, read something on Sarah Baartman, so then we can wrap up this video and go on to the transvestigation of Kal Penn. So here is the story of Sarah Baartman. You can pause the video at any point in time, copy out the link, or you can just type in Sarah Baartman and go see what it actually says. It says here, Sarah Baartman was, or spells Sarah, sometimes in the diminutive from Sajje, because her name was actually Sajje. That means her a South African name or Southern African name was Sajje, and Baartman was the most well-known of at least two Khoi women who, due to their large buttocks, were exhibited as freak show attractions in 19th century Europe under the name Hottentot Venus. Hottentot was the then current name for the Khoi people, now considered an offensive term, and Venus referred to the Roman goddess of love, because all through all the black civilizations of the world, whether it be the first Babylonian civilization, the Egyptian, the second Babylonian, the Assyrian, the Greeks, the Black Romans, all of them, especially coming to the Black Romans, understood that that women had this kind of figure and were representation of Venus. That's why we come to the conclusion that women are from Venus and men from Mars in mythological or in myths and legends that's been circulated around today, or when you hear songs in the media like saying that she's from Venus. I mean, there's one nice song I think from I think it's from Usher, that is a nice song that talks about that as well. So this is where the concept was from, that women had to look this type of way, because all the black civilizations adored this kind of figures, women with hips and extremely large hips of black women as a symbol of Venus. As you can see here, Venus referred to the Roman goddess of love. So Sarah Baartman was a sad example of how bad the Albanic population have been, the evils that they have committed against their black ancestors. It's such horrible stuff. You can read up the story of Sarah Baartman to see it. They said the story here will not include how she died. They'll tell you that she died of some sort of maybe ailment or so, but they won't tell you the dirty, greedy facts that this woman, as a circus or freak show, was being raped by over 30 or 40 men each night on every show that she went. 30, 40 white or albino men every night. She went through such horrors. I mean, if you want to tell, I've read the full story of Sarah Baartman, but I don't know if I can find it for you guys, but you can go do the research on your own and to see the horror that this woman went through just because of her figure, a figure that all black women have. And as you come to see, white superiority has made black women to feel that they should not be looking that way, in trying to help the self-esteem of the white albino women who can look like that. They've decided to downgrade and degrade black women for looking the way they are. So that's one of the things I just wanted to share with you on the myth of whiteness. So we'll continue on with the transvestigation of Kal Penn and just wrap this up. So let's do this. So here is a picture of Kal Penn. As you can see, that back is arching and is starting way too high up to be a man. This is his elbows right here. And that arch just starts like a woman always starts, having an arch just beneath and underneath her elbows. This is what Kal Penn does, or has rather. And as you can see, Kal Penn right here is trying to imitate Kellyanne Conway. Kellyanne Conway, I think, is a special advisor, one of the many advisors to President Donald Trump, which we have featured on a Real Gender series as being a woman. And this is what we'll show you the picture side by side of Kal Penn trying to imitate Kellyanne Conway in what she did. So as you can see, what he was imitating was because he is a woman. As you can see, there's an arch in the back, way too high up starting, because if it's a man, it would be lower down towards the pelvic region, but it's way higher up just below the rib cage here, just to show you that Kal Penn has been lying to us that he is a woman, a transgendered male. And the reason why he's so covered up is because the Indian community or Indian world right now, the current Indian civilization, doesn't know that they have a lot of these transgenders, or that Hollywood is trying to portray one of theirs as transgender. Does it make sense? Homosexuality is not so as accepted as it is in the culture today, in the Western culture. So another picture of Kal Penn, as you can see, he has a strange Q angle for a man. And you'll notice Kal Penn in some of the pictures that I'm going to show you, that he's always putting something in his pockets, because when they're trying to hide the hips, they put a lot of long stuff in their pockets, so you couldn't see that they have curvy hips, you know, like a female. But the Q angle here already starts telling you that you're looking at a woman, because it starts below the crotch. Below the crotch, almost the same Q angle as these females, these other two females that Kal Penn is standing with over here. All right, another picture. Here is Kal Penn with Obama's wife. As you can see, we've already featured Michelle Obama on the Myth of Whiteness. She starts the Myth of Whiteness part #1. So if you're interested in that video, go look for the Myth of Whiteness part #1, Michelle Obama. As you can see, Michelle Obama has a straight back all the way into the pelvis because she's a dude as well. And here is Kal Penn with her. I just wanted to pull up a picture just to show you that they know what they're doing, because Kal Penn used to be a special advisor to her. I think not advisor, but she worked in the cabinet for something. I don't know what it was, but in any case, you can find out. Here is Kal Penn. As you can see, the trick now, starting with he's standing with his legs wide apart, right? Because he's trying to hide the hips, okay? Because if you stand with your females, if a female stands with her legs wide apart, it doesn't show the hips that much in the Q angle. And this is what Kal Penn is trying to do, because no man is going to stand with his legs this wide apart. Man, it's uncomfortable. Why would you do that? You just stand the normal way you would stand at where your hips is at. But from where the legs are, you know that the hips are further out, because further apart the leg, that means the wider the hips are. And you can see the Q angle right here is starting below the crotch, below the crotch, because Kal Penn is a female. It's been hiding to us, and the Vatican has been presented to us. The Vatican has presented him to us rather as male when he's not. Okay, some other pictures of Kal Penn, and this Kal Penn again. See that? It's very, very acute to the Q angle, and it's always around this, you know, hip area that you find that wideness of the hip. He's got something in his pocket, but the acuteness of the Q angle, it's starting below the crotch, all right? Below the crotch, all right? You'll find a lot of pictures that he does that. And he, like I said before, he has one of the worst taste in fashion. It's deliberate because they're trying to cover things up. All right, some other pictures of Kal Penn. As you can see, that same Q angle right there is still below the crotch. It's not above it. It's below the crotch. It's still coming out there below the crotch, because Kal Penn is female. It's been hiding to us, lying to us, and hiding as well. All right, some other pictures of Kal Penn. Again, as you can see right there, you can see that's the elbows, and you can see the way he starts to curve and spread downwards, all right? And the Q angle right here that's so acute is below the crotch. And as you can see, he's got something in both his pockets. Pocket #1, something long. Pocket #2, something long, because they're trying to hide the hips. But the Q angle doesn't lie, because as you can see right here, he starts spreading downwards like a female should. All right, 100% female, not a dude. Here is the picture I wanted to show you of Kal Penn of trying to imitate what Kellyanne Conway was doing, because Kellyanne Conway had some sort of meme for doing this, for a stand there when people came to the White House. She was squatted this way on the couch in the, I think, Oval Office, trying to do something on the phone. And this picture was caught, and they tried to make some sort of joke out of it, and they called in Kal Penn to do that. But as you see, Kal Penn did it and has an arch in his back, indicating that he's female. Same with Kellyanne Conway, who's also female. Another picture of Kal Penn. As you can see, right from the elbows, he starts spreading, the coat gets wider. And we featured this guy before. I think I've forgotten what his name is, but I'm trying to let me get his name right, so I can give you the right name. So the guy's name is Neil Patrick Harris. This is also a transgender male. He's female, actually. We have a video on her as well, so you can go look that up. But we're still on the subject of Kal Penn, and we're just trying to show you that this is actually a female. As you can see from under his elbows, even with the suit lapels, he starts spreading downwards, wider and wider and wider. You can see through that, and you can see that right underneath this, there's a Q angle that starts getting very, very acute because Kal Penn is female. He has one of the worst taste in clothes because they're trying to cover things up so that people wouldn't know. Here is Kal Penn again, and here's another picture. As you can see, that's his elbows right there, and see that he starts spreading and having that hourglass figure that females have. This is way too higher up, because if this was a man, it would be much more low. If it was just a blob of fat. But this is way too high up because the clothes show you that he's getting wider from underneath the elbows. As you can see, there's that hourglass figure right there spreading downwards and downwards and downwards, and then it's all the way up to down here where the Q angle starts, because Kal Penn is female. He's been lying to us that he's a man when he's not. All right, another picture of Kal Penn again. As you can see, this one is showing you clearly the Q angle and the hips below the crotch. See how wide? Hourglass figure all the way down, and then this stuff in his pocket is trying to obstruct those hips, but it's right there, and the Q angle is very, very acute below the crotch. Hourglass figure all the way down, because Kal Penn is female. Been lying to us that he's male. All right, here's another picture. You can still see, so it wasn't like it's some sort of maybe mistake, that he's still spreading downwards from underneath the elbows, and the Q angle is below the crotch. Below the crotch. Stuff in his pocket so that he can hide the hips, but it's below the crotch. Below the crotch, the Q angle below the crotch, not above it, below the crotch, because Kal Penn is 100% transgender and is a female. All right, some other pictures. I'm just trying to show you how they try to hide how he dresses, just to him and Neil Patrick Harris, because these are two women right here. And as you can see, even from the head skull sizes, that they have almost identical skull sizes. I don't want to talk about that today, but you can see these are two female. One's head is not conspicuously larger than the other because they are both female. All right. Another picture of Kal Penn. You can still see that this Q angle is below the crotch, not above it. And he has the worst taste in fashion to hide those hips so that the Indian population, who are not really accepted homosexuality yet, would not be shocked to find out that one of their own is transgender. So that's why they hide him so much. But the Q angle doesn't lie. As Shakira, another transgender, said, the hips do not lie. They don't. It's below the crotch. Female. All right. Another picture of this is just a picture I pulled up just to show you that your former president in Barack Obama knows all about it, because he loves transgenders, because Michelle Obama is a transgender, and here's another one. So he just loves being around these things. All right, I just wanted to show you guys that. And here is Kal Penn again. As you can see, the Q angle is below the hips, or below the crotch. Sorry to say, the hips. It's below the crotch. Very, very acute. And as usual, he's standing with his feet wide apart, all right, trying to hide those curvaceous hips that he has, because he's female and he knows that. You can see that Q angle below the crotch, Q angle below the crotch. See, wider tapers right there, and the Q angle starts below the crotch, because this dude knows that it's a woman. All right. Another picture, as you can see, the female has an arch in her back. That's where her waist is, where the arch starts. And so does Kal Penn, holding her, because they are both female. And the skull sizes also should tell you there is no clear difference amongst the two, because they are both females. Kal Penn is a woman holding another woman, being portrayed to us as male and being lied to. Another stooge of the Vatican, showing you how despicable the people who are leading us through the Vatican and who are actually albino are. There is no length and depth that they wouldn't go to sell us this thing, because they are like the devil. They are abusing the authority and power. Okay, I already showed you that picture. I just wanted to show you one more time that Michelle Obama has a straight back. And I think that's the end of today's presentation. And I hope you learned something, so you can come to the understanding that, that being black is humanity. because there is no color in the color spectrum that you can add to get white. There's no color. Add all the colors in this world, you won't get white. Because what is white? White is an absence of color. Black is the concentration of all color. If you add all the colors in the color spectrum, you get black because it is the concentration of color. So it does make sense, logical sense for a human being to be black. Black skinned and black hair and black everything, because God created us all, and God is the concentration, the totality of all wisdom and knowledge. So that means he would have the totality of all color as well. So God is black, and he created man in his image and every other being around him to look like him. So black is the natural, it's humanity. White is an absence of color. It's no color at all. So even when people think that the devil is a white man, is a lie. The devil is black, just like God, just like any black man you will see, and he has color, because the devil was termed beautiful. He was said he was one of the most beautiful creatures. So that means he had to be black as well, because he would have the concentration of all color, just like the man who created him, with woolly hair, or nappy hair, as they say. So I hope you learned something and have come to the understanding on why, black women are treated the way they are, so that they can be made, so that the white women can have some sort of self-esteem higher, because they don't look like their black, ancestors. All right, that's just the truth of this. So black women are wonderful. Black women are great. I respect you all, and I want you to know that. And I respect every woman, regardless of her ethnicity. I don't care what color you are. I respect all women, and I thank all women. I thank you all women for making us possible, because without you guys, we wouldn't be here. It doesn't matter what color you are, whether you're black or white, all right, or black or albino, as the case may be. I respect all women, and I hope that you learned that from this video, and I thank you. All right, so I'll leave you with these words as usual. Look with your eyes, but see with your brain. Thanks, and bye-bye.